Welcome back, football fans, to another episode of Necessary Roughness right here on the Bite Size Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, John Boyd, joined by my co-hosts, Nick Winograd and Zach Keebler. We've got a lot to cover.
We back in this mother baby. It's been 2 weeks, but we're here, dog.
Bills are back, among other things.
We are not back at all.
The Giants are still gone, but we're going to cover we're going to dive deep into 7 games that I wanted to pinpoint. And then if there's any other game you wanted us to touch on, just drop that in the comments below. But we are going to move through these as soon as I figure out. Nick, Zach, how the hell are you guys?
I'm doing good. Fantasy's been going well, finally. But in terms of football teams, not too well. But for me personally, I'm doing fantastic. We'll just put it that way. Nick, how you doing?
I like to hear that, man. I hear that. I'm wonderful on this Tuesday night. We're having a good time. Work is good. Life is good. Bills are great. MLB playoffs started. It, but fuck it, we're for it. Excited. Get this shit going, baby.
Let's go. So, we're obviously going to get to the New York football team, the Buffalo Bills, and those guys over in Jersey. But I would like to start with our buddy Trev's favorite team. And I feel like this is kind of the one of the hotter topics of the weekend, frankly, that Sunday night football game. Chiefs at the Jets. We saw Zach Wilson, Z Willie, getting back into it, showing some BYU flashes at times, and it looked really, really composed for the most part. I really liked what I saw from him. That's got to be really encouraging for Jets fans. The defense looked good.
He's the first quarterback to statistically outperform Patrick Mahomes in a game since Mahomes became a starter.
No. The NFL and college.
Oh, really? I thought it was just NFL.
Nope.
The truth himself, Zach Wilson. But I think what a lot of people have been talking about, and was this Lee's comment? Oh, no, he was talking about Monday Night Football. We'll get to that, Lee. Thanks for being here, by the way. Lee just about never misses a show, so shout out to him. Hit us up in the comments, Lee, if you have any other games you want us to touch on. But I feel like down the stretch on NFL Twitter, in particular, and then I think in a lot of circles as well, there was a lot made about some calls and some no calls down the stretch of that Chiefs-Jets game. Just kind of on a macro scale, Nick, I'll start with you. Do you think that on that last Chiefs drive and sort of leading up to it, that those ref decisions or indecisions really tipped this game in the Chiefs' favor? Or do you think they just went out and took it on that last drive? How do you feel about the Sauce holding? How do you feel about the Donovan Smith non-holding call on Jermaine Johnson? And I think there was one other one that's been kind of made a big deal. But what were your thoughts on the, I guess, just the referee decisions down the stretch?
Yeah, so initially I felt like it was ridiculous, especially the flag on Sauce. You can't throw the after the play already happened. It's like throwing a flag on a touchdown and then being like, nope, OPI. Like what? Already a touchdown. So that's like my initial reaction. But then I thought about it a little bit. I guess it was a correct call. I guess he was holding him, and like I said that like he didn't want to obstruct the vision of like the play. But if like it's already a hold, just call it, I guess. But I don't know if it affected it the way that people are making it seem to be. I think that at the end of the day, Patrick did go and he went on a 7-minute drive at the end of the game. He went down the field. He had an incredible run. I mean, there might have been like 4 holds in that he had 22, but Nevertheless, I think the Chiefs got bailed out a little bit by the refs, but at the same time, he made the plays he needed to not play well. But at the end of the day, people are saying Zach Wilson played great. He did. He probably played the best game of his career. Patrick Mahomes probably the worst games there. The Chiefs run away from MetLife winners. So I think that, at the end of the day, Mahomes did just enough. He played beginning. He played well in the end. Zach Wilson kind of did it in the middle. But it ended with the Chiefs win. So I don't really see it. Oh my God, the Jets got robbed. But by no means did Mahomes play his best game at all. And no means the rest did the best job they could have done. But I think that it was the correct call against Sauce. I just wish that he would have called it quicker. I wish it would have been because then people would have been not picked it off and then it's a flag. Come on, it just seems a little suspect.
Yeah, I think that was a lot of the thing was it was almost like the refs waited to see the pick and they were like, oh, can't have that.
Yeah.
But let us know down in the comments below too what you thought of these questionable calls and no calls. There was another holding on questionable holding anyway on Donovan Smith to kind of set the edge on that big Pacheco run to the left side where he kind of rolled over Jermaine Johnson again. People have said, I saw on Twitter somebody said, yeah, it might have been holding on Sauce there, but that's probably the least I've seen him hold on any given snap since he entered the league. He's playing people out there. It didn't seem like he actually threw off the route. It didn't seem like he pulled him off his mark necessarily. It's almost like, and I think too, one thing with Sauce, his arms are so goddamn long that sometimes it looks more like a bear hug than it is. His arms just kind of wrap around you as you're trying to cross his face. Yeah. But it was tough. Oh, we got Herbert in the chat. If anything, Vikes got bailed out. That's hilarious. What did you think of the? Because we got a divisional fan of another team in the Chiefs division. What did you think of that kind of closing sequence for the refs in that Chiefs Jets game? Herbert, I'm curious to know your opinion as well. Zach, what were your thoughts on that kind of sequence there? Both the Sauce hold, and then I'm sure you saw on Twitter as well that Donovan Smith and Jermaine Johnson. Where they're tied up and a lot of folks were calling that a hold. I think it was the 3rd and 22.
He was able to just get out and run for 25, and it was so sus because it was what? As he supposed to?
Yeah. And speaking of this too, real quick before you go, Keeb, Salah was livid.
Yeah.
Usually he kind of looks like Xerxes from 300 out there, just real stoic, and bald. But he was fired up. He was fired up, dude, and he was pacing up and down the sidelines, yelling right after the Sauce hold, and then he sort of continued to. Refs love KC, according to Noob here, and a lot's made of the Taylor Swift effect as well. But Keeps, what were your thoughts on those ref decisions down the stretch?
Yeah, I didn't see that second one that you mentioned, but I did see the Sauce one. I thought that was pretty blatant from what I saw. I agree with Nick, he should have thrown the flag sooner. But just in terms of people saying oh, the ref sold the game, whatever, you intercept Mahomes twice and you still let him win the game. You don't really do anything with those interceptions. So at the same time, it's yes, there could be one or two bad or not even bad, just questionable calls down the stretch that could go either way. I'm in favor of just letting them play unless it's blatantly obvious. But if you can't do anything with the turnovers that you create, then you're basically just selling the game yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I thought the Donovan
they scored a lot off of the turnovers though, didn't they?
Yeah, but they did have the ball, I think, with a tie game before they gave it back to KC, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, yeah, Zach fumbled.
Yeah.
He didn't fumble, he fumbled the snap.
Right. They had some opportunities to put it away. And Wilson was really beating himself up about that. So I saw his teammates coming over and consoling him. It was a pretty cool moment. You can kind of see those vets are rallying behind him a little bit. But I
After
thought the
the
Donovan Smith hold was a little bit more blatant. But again, it's kind of one of those things, and the coaches said this in the locker room, as perturbed as they were with those calls. I'm sure they were saying, "Hey, it shouldn't even have come to that. Put the game away when you have the opportunity to." But let's get back at it next week. As far as the actual football that took place, it was a really interesting game, and it could have gone. Like, there were a couple plays, the Garrett Wilson almost touchdown up the right boundary, where it just grazed his fingertips. That could have been a pretty big game changer. Kelsey didn't really get particularly involved. Guys like C.J. Mosley and Quincy Williams did really well to keep pace with him. I think as a Jets fan, you're probably feeling great about that game. As long as you're not dwelling on those referee decisions as much as the next guy, because they really played him tough. I think that was a big confidence boost for them, and Zach in particular, and the rest of the offense.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, they've played the top two teams in the AFC incredibly tough. They beat one of them, and they almost beat the other. Both at home. The crowd was into both games. The defense. When someone said, and I agree, when that Jets defense is playing lights out like that and get no defensive output from Zach Wilson, whoever's quarterbacking, you lose confidence as a defense because, like, we're doing all this for you to get the ball back, and we're out in the 3 and we're right back on the field. Like, what are we doing it for? But when Zach is able to make some throws and actually, like, command the offense a little bit, see him get into the game, and the crowd is, getting into the game because the offense is actually making plays, the defense is going to go out there and say, all right, we're actually in this game. It's 28. There's no – it's not – you don't get that feeling that, like, we have no chance in this game. What are we even going out there for? So, yeah. I mean, I'm very impressed. They have – I mean, I saw, like, Rex Ryan say, like, he, like, for sure thinks the Jets are making the playoffs. I mean, shit, dude. Like, I don't know about that, but, like, they definitely have a lot to look forward to, I would say. Like, they have so much around them right now, and Zach Wilson looked so good and poised, and Nathaniel Hackett did a really good job this week prepping, and, a lot of people are giving a lot of credit to Kansas City's defense. I mean, shit, like, you're the only defense that has allowed Wilson to get all, like, rolling. So I don't know how great that Chiefs defense really is, but line back looked really. The Chiefs won in the game anyways. No playoffs, but at least you got some, in my opinion. But at least you got some hope for it.
Yeah, I feel like Rex just got really fired up on them playing them close and kind of forgot what the rest of the AFC looks like. But
yeah,
one thing I liked about yesterday's game was the fact that they were letting Wilson, like, essentially do what he wanted. Like, they weren't just keeping him in the pocket. They were letting him roll out. They were letting him make those throws that we've seen him be capable of making in the past. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that definitely benefited them too. The other thing I wanted to say is that Nathaniel Hackett's definitely keeping next week on his radar because it's against the Broncos with that whole drama with Sean Payton and all that. So I think we're going to see an absolute masterclass from Hackett, hopefully, and then hopefully get the Jets on this winning track again with Zach Wilson.
Yeah. Hell with Sean Payton, right?
I mean, there were so many people that were clowning Hackett, like, yo, you're like the worst head coach ever, and now he's like,
Sean Payton was one of them.
Yeah, it was really Sean Payton. He was like, that's the worst coaching job I have ever seen.
It's like, dude, you guys suck, and, like, the Jets look aight, and, like, Zach Wilson and Hackett really on plays. So, like, Sean Payton, you got to learn how to, like, fucking shut your mouth before you go out there. Like, listen, man, there's levels to this thing, man. You might be good with a Hall of Fame back, but now you got Russell Wilson, who is still, in my opinion, a Hall of Fame quarterback. You're 1-3, and your defense looks horrendous. So,
and it's crazy some of the pieces they have on that defense, and it's still, like, kind of bad.
Yep, and they were good under Evero. I think he was probably wise to get out of there. But you know what? I was thinking we were going to do this one last, but we've got a couple comments or we got one comment anyway from Justin here, and I thought we might just rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, we'll start my rant a little early.
Yeah, we'll start the rant a little bit early. So, Zach, we'll definitely start with you on this one. G-Men, and remember, DEFCON 1 is the worst. 5 is okay. This Giants team is at DEFCON what after that Seattle loss? Especially considering that the one win is a comeback win against a team that, by a lot of common opinion is the worst roster in the NFL. Do you think this is panic time, or are you seeing some signs where they might get back on track?
Absolutely. I think it's definitely time to panic. You've been outscored in the first half in your first 4 games, 77-9. That's just not good. Just flat out. That's what I'll say.
It's not good. Yeah.
You let your quarterback get sacked 11 times in one football game. Daniel Jones, like the Seahawks players were even saying it, like it's easy to read Daniel Jones because he stares down his first read, and then if he doesn't like it, he just tries to run the ball. Obviously, Saquon being out affects that not very much. Andrew Thomas being out definitely affects the O-line, I would say. On the first drive, it looked very solid, and then I guess we got gassed after 4 plays, and then the O-line just decided to give up. I don't know. I think it's going to – at the beginning of the year, Nick can vouch. When I saw articles saying that the Giants were going to be like a 6-win team, I was like, no way. Like, we'll be anywhere from like maybe 9 to 11 is where I see us. Yeah, I completely take that back. I agree with the experts. We're probably sitting around 6 wins this year, especially with what we got coming up. Definitely a time to panic. Should be making moves to upgrade our O-line. Not happening, obviously. Evan Neal should be in the XFL, plain and simple. Was there anything else I wanted to say about that?
Well, I asked, like, what's your opinion on Jones? Like, do you think that they paid him prematurely? Do you think that he deserved that contract that he got? He's lost the Giants for the next 2 years. Like, there's no getting around it.
You talked about the sacks too, and Daniel Jones threw his first, I think it's 68 games he's started. He's taken 4 or more sacks in 25 of those, which is a high percentage. But I think a lot of that has to do with the offensive line. How do you feel about DJ going forward?
I mean, for yesterday's game, I don't think it was entirely on him. I think it was 80% the O-line not being able to hold a block, which forces him to have to speed things up. His receivers don't play in they play in like slow motion, I like to say, because it doesn't look like half the time they're running their full speed on their routes. I would say it's definitely on Zach Wilson. Definitely on Daniel Jones for yesterday a little bit, given how he had that fumble. And then the one pick was in garbage time, so like whatever. But that one interception kind of helped give the momentum to the Seahawks. Moving forward, I just think we have to upgrade that offensive line, and then he'll be able to make – then he'll have time in the pocket to make those reads. But, yeah, no, like I said with the Seahawks, what they said, he just stares down his first option. You have to read the entire field because you could be looking and, Hyatt's down there for a bomb already with his speed. You got Wan'Dale Robinson, who looked fantastic yesterday with what he was given. I love Wan'Dale Robinson a lot. I'm so happy he's back. But, yeah, moving forward with DJ, I'm good with it if we can upgrade the O-line. If not, we have to have someone who can make those reads faster, can get the ball out more. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or one of those guys who can really make something out of nothing, which is, the top 3-4 QBs in the NFL.
Yeah.
So
the Mahomes, the Joshes, all that.
Yep, exactly.
But I just want to add on, like, I think somebody like Brian Dable, who is calling the plays, he's got to figure out how to kind of. I mean, really, the Seahawks, right? They bring so much pressure at them, and you have to be able to avert that by making drawing up where okay, we're gonna, I'm not an offensive coordinator by any means, but you got to be able to draw up a play that can kind of avert that, and then have like maybe you're coming from this side, but this is where Daniel Jones is comfortable. So I'm gonna have maybe the left guard, left guard, block this way, or like he's got to be able to figure out something so that Daniel's not just going straight back and there's all of a sudden pressure coming around the edge or pressure in his face where you really get out because he likes to play outside the pocket. I mean, he didn't even have a chance, and on that like 97-yard pick six to Witherspoon, who's a stud, he wasn't really a stud on that play. To do is freaking catch the ball. It came right to him. Like, yeah, everyone's hyping him up so much. I mean, like, and one of my told me like it was communication stick play who the receiver was, but like he was supposed to do like an out this way and come back. He did it the other way, and then Jones threw it and it was picked. Like, I don't know. It doesn't seem like a decision that Jones would make if he had some time. But the fact that everything, and as Zach, you said, like everything's quick. Like any way that can succeed, and people say it all the time, is when the time becomes slow, and you can be like, yo, this is becoming slow to me. Like time out. Obviously, the opposite for Daniel Jones. He's like, shit. It's like I got to make this decision quickly. Oh, he was the play picked. Yep. Like it's so quick for him, and he needs to put it down. I don't think that's up to Daniel. I think that's up to Dable. Yeah. And I think that's up to like both of them kind of going into a meeting like, listen, man, I don't think we're bad. I think that we were really damn good last year. We're not off to a good start. And the O-line, they got to like be honest with themselves. Like the O-line, they got to be like, okay, but we can kind of get away from that maybe. We can maybe like just figure something out that way. Because otherwise, what are you doing? Like, are we just going to 9 at the every game? He'll be out of the league in 2 years.
Yeah, it's a little too much of that Josh Allen blueprint with Dable's scheme. Like, I think you've got to be, especially going forward, you have to operate within that realm of quick game for the most part. DJ's got to know where he's hot, where the blitz is coming from, and where the check down is into that void that the blitz gives, especially with guys like Wan'Dale Robinson who can make some noise after the catch. When Saquon's fully healthy, obviously he's one of those guys. Devin Witherspoon also had 2 sacks. So they were really dialing up pressure. I think some of that onus goes on John Michael Schmitz, who's probably setting the protections with that group and identifying threats. And then, I think from all the decision makers on that offense, all the leaders on that offense, from Dable to JMS, Sky Uma, by the way, to Daniel Jones, there's some disconnect there for sure. When it comes to identifying where the pressure is coming from, when it comes to picking up free rushers, when it comes to holding your blocks, when it comes to throwing hot, I think some of these plays are like a little too long developing for him to be successful at this juncture. So, on the off chance that Green 80 checks this show out, before we move on, the Seahawks looked good. They were pretty good. I like a lot of what they're doing. I think some of those young pieces on the defense are really coming together, and they're starting to manufacture some pressure. The pass rush looked really bad early on this season, and there's some young guys with some promise, but it's not a particularly talented group yet. With Boye Mafe and Darrell Taylor and Uchenna Nwosu, you've got to manufacture some pressure, and I think they did really well to do that. On Monday night, it looked, some of the pressure packages they threw at DJ and the Giants were really effective. So I think that's something to be pretty confident in going forward as a Seahawks fan as well. Just so we give them a little bit of shine for the win. But when one of our teams loses, I like to commiserate it a little bit. But
just
go ahead.
The last couple of things I just want to say about that Giants game because it came to my head. I just realized or remembered that John Michael Schmitz left the game early with a shoulder injury, so maybe that's why the O-line. Right. So
he played till half, right?
I think around there.
Close to it? Yeah.
But that's what I was saying. Like the O line looked good, and then he came out of the game, and then it looked miserable. Bellinger also went down with a knee injury, so that kind of takes away some of the run blocking there. Andrew Thomas, like we gave him one of, if not the biggest contracts, and he's been hurt, not able to be there. But I feel like with a fully healthy O line, it's not as bad as it looked yesterday, but it's still not good. As long as Evan Neal's on that line, I really don't like it. I really don't. And then what was the last thing I was going to say? It was in my head, and then it just went away. Oh, but credit to the Seahawks. They look good. One person I just want to shout out on the Giants defense is Deontay Banks for basically just standing there and letting DK just run to the side to get a touchdown. I thought that was fantastic. But yeah, that's, I think, and then the one argument that Nick and I had that I want your input on, John. Mike Kafka, does he call the offensive plays or no? It's not just Dable.
Well, he sure has some input in the weekly meetings, but ultimately it's Dable. I think he's got the final say in play calling anyway. But yeah, it's the same thing with like when O'Connell was in LA and they won the Super Bowl. McVay was calling the plays, but a lot of that game plan came from the OC and the quarterback's coach. So it's always a confluence of, those guys. But I think when you talk about a play caller, it's just who has final say, which is Dable, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, because he's the head coach.
Yeah, but there's, it's
no, Zach, no. He's not. He doesn't make the decisions because he's the head coach.
Right. He has final say on the offensive. He doesn't have final say on the defensive play calls. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. Sean McDermott, the Bills have he doesn't do the offense at all. He's only the defense. And then I think that if it's like 4th and 2, he's like, yo, let's go. I think that's the head coach. But I'm just saying that Dable was like the best offensive coordinator behind in the league. Giants are going to hire him to call the plays because that's what he did. Like, he's not going to just become like the Santa Claus and like, hey, and delegate and be like, nah, I don't know who you're talking about, the OC, but like, you're going to start calling the plays. That makes no sense. Like, obviously, that's why they hired him, because he's good at it. That's all I'm saying.
Because I was under the impression Kafka did most of the play calling, and then, like you said, Dable got like the final say in like what was actually ran.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll submit he'll give his input. He probably has something to do with the opening game script. But throughout the game, yeah, it's Dable dialing things up on the offensive side. But that again, when you're going forward and you're talking about reimagining some of the ways you run this offense, going a more quick game, that's everybody involved. You know what I mean? Like there's got to be kind of a group effort there. Take heart though, Keeb. Arch Manning comes out in 2026. Final thing on Giants Seahawks. Jaron Reed, 6th or something in defensive tackle pass rush win rate. He looked like shit in Green Bay. So they're doing something right in Seattle with Jaron Reed. That was a pretty good pickup. And thankfully he is, because Draymond Jones is looking like a slight overpay at this juncture at $17 million a year. Next, we're going to jump into Joe Burrow and the Bengals. What is going on? They're looking like the Bungles out there, especially on offense. Burrow's a shell of himself with this injury. He's a statue in there. He's not getting the ball out quick. He's not being decisive. It doesn't look like he has a ton of power off his back foot. It looks weird. This offense looks really, really weird. It's not what we're used to from Zach Taylor and the rest of that group. And the defense is fighting an uphill battle. I still stand Lou Anarumo. I think what he's able to do with pretty decent talent, but not necessarily a ton of top end talent is great. But I think they're feeling losing both of those starting safeties a little bit, as well as Dax Hill has played. I think they're feeling it, losing Jesse Bates, and ultimately, I think it comes down to at what point do you bench Burrow so he can fully recover and come back and be Joe Burrow? Is it enough for him to just have that presence as that leader of that group if he's not going to be able to do the things they count on him to do? So that's kind of the way I want to frame this question before we get into the minutia of the game and what we think this team can do going forward. But if this injury is really what's eating at him so much, and that's what's kind of been the driving factor of this big drop off we've seen in production and quality of play from Joe Burrow, is it something where if you were calling the shots, would you rest him a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks till he's 100%? Or just from like a consistency standpoint and having your leader out on the field going to war with you, at what point is that a losing battle? Nick, if you were calling the shots over there, would you consider sitting Joe Burrow down and say, "Hey, listen, I appreciate you being such a fighter and getting out there and keeping on getting up, but if you're hurt, you're hurt, and we can't have you playing, below what your par is, if we're going to be contending this year." Would you consider sitting him out for a few weeks and just kind of having that conversation with him? I know you want to be in there, but we got to do this for the team. And do you think they've underinvested in backup quarterback for given that could be a possibility?
So there's two. I do think sit him down and say, listen, like okay. So on this is that if it was like 1-7 and they were close, and they were like, oh, we're just there losing these games, either way, it would be like, no. I think I would feel like, no. I think Joe's fine. He's a little hot. He's fine. But they're not. They're boring. They're not making any noise. They're embarrassing themselves. And Joe Burrow is just. I saw Nick quarterbacks same tier right now as Bryce Young. So like that's not good. And if he wasn't playing, he'd still be in that top because we wouldn't know any of happening with like his bad play. Oh, Cincinnati's great, but without Burrow, we're waiting for Jack. He's playing through it, like trash. They can't score. They look like Daniel Jones and the Giants. And
hey, watch your mouth.
Yeah, though, but like Joe, this is just not it. Like, first of all, Baltimore is going to win the division 3 games, so this might just be a lost season anyway. Hey, to have a lost season. Get back to who you are. We will figure this shit out over the season, and we'll know you're upset about it, and we have Super Bowl aspirations with this team. And Jamar Chase, he says he's always open, even though he's probably because Joe Burrow, if he was. I just feel like you need to reset this and come back a different breed, because like it's not going to work if you're going to keep on losing 27-3 against a Tennessee Titans lost 20.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird, man.
And they don't have a Mike White. They don't have a like a Tyrod Taylor or a Jacoby Brissett. It's Jake Browning if you're going to sit Joe Burrow.
Who?
Right, which is tough. That's a tough call to make, especially when you have a backup quarterback with no experience. And when you've seen him perform in preseason, it hasn't been great. So like that's what's tough. And it feels like too, if they're gonna do that, then it's gonna be really difficult to win these next couple of games. I mean, do they sit Joe, trade T. Higgins, draft Marvin Harrison? Maybe. Because I think that's a serious and I'm not one for even entertaining NFL tanking. I think I think when you have 53 of the most competitive grown men on the planet, that's just not a real proposition. It's not a real strategy to quote unquote tank. But what you can do is say, hey, our guy at quarterback is injured and he's not performing the way that we need him to. So let's at least get a healthy body out there, see what we can do. Like Lee said, with the shelf life left on this contract, it's probably prudent to make sure he's back 100% healthy before he exacerbates this injury by continuing to play. So that being said, it was a 3 points, right? 3 points?
Yeah, I think it was 27-3.
Unless
second time in the season with 3 points.
Tennessee. And if James is in the chat, tighten up. What a game. Darth Vrabel. Let's go. Tennessee's 2-2. And it looks like they could actually make some noise in the AFC South. But hey, it's a rock and a hard place, I think, right now for Cincinnati. So whichever direction they go, I think it's going to be really difficult to kind of get things back on track. Next, we're going to talk about.
Go
ahead.
The thing with Burrow is I feel like even though like the injury is obviously lingering, I think a lot of it could have to just do with mental. To be honest, he's probably thinking to himself, because I remember watching him run out of the tunnel like they showed him. He looked like he did not want to be there in the slightest. Like he looked like he shouldn't go on the field and try to perform. So obviously you have the Bengals that want to be competitive, forcing him out onto the field, trying to see what he can do. Not really doing the best for what they can do. They could turn it into like a Tom Brady situation and just have him throw checkdowns and see what your receivers can do with the yard after catch to save him some movement if they do want him out on the field. But especially from your quarterback, like mental health plays such a big factor. And if you're being like bashed on the internet essentially by the entire NFL community, on top of trying to play through an injury, on top of signing the biggest, like now the second biggest contract in NFL history, now that Mahomes did his little restructuring, whatever, it can be a lot to take in. So I feel like being able to sit him, if you are going to play him, I feel like this next week is the week that you do play him to see what you still got out of him because they play the Cardinals. So maybe this could be like a get your confidence back. We'll see what we can adjust offensively, and then see what you can do.
And I think there's two sides of that coin when you talk about the Cardinals game, because it could be a get right game for Burrow, but it also could be a game that you look at and say, listen, I think if we roll Jake Browning out there, commit to the run game, and play solid defense, we might be able to get by with a win and a rest week for Joe. So I think that could kind of go either way. So we've seen the Cardinals be feisty, right? But it's just a much more talented group in Cincinnati. So I could see that going either way, depending on how they view that. Nick, it looks like you have a thought or two on that.
I mean, I think that even if it was rolled out there, I think Arizona wins this game. I don't know about you. Apparently, you guys don't feel that way.
I mean, Dobbs is very solid. I'll give him his credit where it's due.
The thing about Arizona is that they score more than 3 points. So I think that they.
Jonathan Gannon's got some killers. He's looking.
Yeah, I see like a close-ish win for Arizona. It's in the desert. They have to. Cincinnati doesn't play there very often at all. To go to the desert, where I feel like Arizona plays every game at home. By the way, I don't know what's up with that.
And like every other Super Bowl is there too.
Yeah, and then San Francisco also plays every game at home apparently. So, and I was shocked. I saw Cincinnati's favored by like 7 on the road in the desert when they just scored 3 points for the second time this season. Well, Arizona almost beat the Giants, beat the Cowboys, hung in there with San Francisco. Like what? This is week 5, right?
The Bengals are -3 that game. I just checked.
Oh, it's 3 now. Okay, yeah. Well, okay. I heard like initially it was 7. And I was like just blown away. No way. But I honestly am going to take Arizona to win that game. But we'll see what happens. Even if Burrow is out there.
Yeah, it opened at -5, and now it's -3. So it's starting to move toward the Cardinals.
I feel like
maybe the Eagles shouldn't have got rid of Kaiser White either, Justin. He is looking pretty good. Next, we're going to talk about the team that beat this Bengals team in the Super Bowl. And that's the Los Angeles Rams. Peekaboo is the name of the segment.
He's a dog, bro.
This guy is insane. Through 4 games, 39 catches. The next most through a player's first 4 NFL games is Anquan Boldin with 30. So blows that out of the water. And, looking forward, like, especially with the way some of these young guys have been playing for the Rams, they had, I think it was 39 rookies on their 90-man roster. Obviously not that many on their 53, but you've got a lot of young guys starting in some very important spots. You've got Kobe Turner up on the line, Michael Hoyt back to start again alongside Aaron Donald. A lot's being put on Ernest Jones in his 3rd year. Jordan Fuller, safety, is a captain on the back end. The cornerback group is a little rough, but these guys are getting up every week to play, and the offense looks good. We know McVay can scheme up an offense, but we didn't think he'd be able to with the dearth of talent that he's got at the moment. But Stafford looks composed. Higbee's been huge, obviously. Skoranic's been fine. Tutu Atwell has looked good. And, like, with Puka, though, I think you might not even see a huge drop-off in production once we get Cooper Kupp back. Because this the route tree he's ran since he got to the NFL doesn't really overlap with what Cooper Kupp does. Cooper Kupp, obviously, a ton of those hitches, a ton of those choice routes, a ton of the zigs. But Puka Nacua has actually been running, even without Cooper Kupp on the field, a ton of slants, a ton of digs, some seam routes. So they slid him in kind of right into that Robert Woods role and didn't really miss a beat. So I think a ton of credit goes to Sean McVay for sure. But Puka Nacua himself, Matthew Stafford, has played great. That Rams' O-line has been okay. Joseph Noteboom, rookie Steve Avila at left guard has looked really, really good. It's weird. This team looks like it could actually make some noise. So I wonder what you guys kind of see for them going forward. As you project out, this was a game where they allowed the Colts to creep back into it. It was 23-7 at one point. Colts came back, tied it up with 2 2-point conversions and a scorching hot Anthony Richardson at the end of the game. But then Rams came out, got the ball in OT, and put it away. So sitting at 2-2 right now, Keebs, I'll start with you. Do you see this Rams team actually making potentially like a viable playoff push and actually being kind of in the mix down the stretch and grabbing a wild card spot, or do you think they'll kind of fizzle out even once Cooper Kupp comes back into the mix?
I said it on a previous show. I don't know if you guys remember exactly which one, but I said like a fully healthy Rams team isn't necessarily like one to mess around with, because again, they were just in the Super Bowl against the Bengals, not too different of a roster now. Obviously, like you have Odell on the roster and things like that, but
Jalen Ramsey.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying like you have guys that can fill those holes. Not as much for Jalen Ramsey, obviously, because he's a phenomenal corner. But Puka
Miller, Leonard Floyd.
Puka's done a great job of stepping up, obviously, in wide receiver, like you mentioned. Kupp, when he's healthy, we know how much Stafford likes him. So he's going to put up meaningful production. And then defenses don't just have to focus on Puka. Now they have to focus on 2 guys, which will open up spacing for both of them. In terms of fizzing out, I feel like they probably will. Just a little bit. They could make a push for a wild card, but I think there's just like too many talented teams in the NFC that I would take over them still. But obviously the 49ers are going to win that division. There's not really much question there. I would take most of the NFC East teams over them. The NFC North is going to get their winner. So I'm not too sure about a playoff push, but it's definitely going to be a good season for them. And next year, I assume they'll be right back in the mix of like grabbing a wild card, things like that.
Yeah, I think even if they're not, securing a wild card spot, I think in the last 3, 4, 5 weeks of the season, they're really going to piss some teams off who are in playoff contention by playing spoiler a little bit. Nick, I'm going to give you the floor here next because we're going to talk a little bit of Dolphins Bills. The Dolphins were, the hottest thing in football coming into this game. They're coming off of 70 points. They've been ransacking teams. Those two running backs have been nuts. The wide receivers have been nuts. They have the 5 fastest men per GPS tracking in the NFL this season. Just looked like they were going to steamroll everybody. We always thought this game would be close, but a lot of people picked the Dolphins. I've become of the opinion that Vic Fangio and all of his disciples and everything he touches that doesn't have Aaron Donald involved sucks. And I think the Bills really exploited that. Give us your spiel on, this demonstrative win by your favorite team over a division rival who was really stealing a lot of the shine from Buffalo early on this season, especially after the Jets game that we talked about at length on this show 2 weeks back. But what have you seen from your Bills since then, and how do you feel about them going forward after stomping out a division rival like that?
But before you get into that, just 4 words. I'm sorry, Josh Allen.
There you go.
All I want to say.
Okay, sounds good. That'll save us some time. Go ahead, Nick.
There you go. Like, what have I seen after that? I think that Jets loss was the best thing that could have happened to them. I didn't think that in the moment necessarily. Like a little bit of like I think piss them off a little bit, but after how they looked, I was like, are they gonna come out and crush the Raiders? Yes, went to the game, but like I didn't give a shit. It was so much fun, but I was like, yay, good job. Mm-hmm. And then they beat Washington 37-3, and I was like, Washington kind of wait, they don't suck that much, right? They just played in overtime with Philly, and if they went for 2, Ron Rivera, you could have beaten them, but didn't do that. So Washington's considered, a lot of people say in a playoff, a wild card contender. Okay, well, we beat them by 34. And then we go, come back at home, and Miami, they were wearing the little shirts where they were like confused why they were not hurt against us on the road, and I was like, oh yeah, you guys are confused, huh? They come in to we start the game off hot, cool. Tua A-Chain scores again. A-Chain scores twice. I'm like, holy shit, dude, who the fuck is this guy? I'm like, why is he scoring all the time now? And I'm pretty sure they just tried to end zone for them. Dude, this guy scored 6 times in the last 2 weeks now. But bottom line is the whole running away thing that they do doesn't work really. I'm sorry. Like I know like Tyreek is fun to watch and like Jalen Watt. Tua converted back to his rookie season to me. He played a good defense, a scary defense that hits hard, has ball hawks. One of them being hitting prayers. I feel really bad. But it's just one of those things where a lot of people expected a team like to just come in and just throw bombs. I don't know, man. If 48-20, it shows not only like if it was close, like I put Miami in my top 3 of AFC teams. But they are now out of my top 5 because they were exposed. They were exposed because they may be able to do what they can do by scoring quote unquote 70 points against a Denver Broncos team. You can't do that late in the year. So you had to early. That it doesn't really matter what you do to like the Giants now. It doesn't matter if you play the damn Cleveland Browns. It doesn't matter. Like a meme where two is like, "Hey, you got any of those bad teams to the left?" Like, yeah, we do, man. You got some bad teams on the schedule you're gonna beat, but it just reminds me of like one of those situations where you got a really fast team, but when it comes to like the and this was a shootout. Like this is supposed to be a shootout. We're scoring, you're scoring, we're scoring, you're scoring. So if you're built for that, then why are you only scoring 20 points? Like why are we scoring 50 and you're only scoring built for? Obviously you're not. So Tua just sailing passes. He should have been picked off 3 times. He got sacked 5 times. Greg Matt Milano, Von Miller's coming back. Leonard Floyd had another sack. He's leading the team. Yeah, and that was on end with and then Trey got out, with the Achilles. So
that sucks. Trey White, go ahead. Sorry.
But yeah, it was a really good win. Josh had obviously probably the best game of his career, having the perfect passer rating.
21 for 25.
Yeah, I mean, and that's I think that he really I said after the week 1 like he doesn't learn from his mistakes. He's now learning from his mistakes. He's taking what the defense gives him. And this Buffalo team is also different because we're running the ball a lot. We have Latavius, we have James Cook, we have Damian Harris. They're actually running the ball, and I watch like that up everything. It really does. Like if Singletary's in the backfield and you give him the ball and he gets 2 yards, then if we go play action, defenses are like, I don't give a shit if you run the ball. He's getting 2 yards.
Mm-hmm.
But if
you're finally taking some of that responsibility off of Josh Allen to carry the running team.
Yes, and you could tell how excited he is about it. Like when Latavius goes for like 35 yards down, he's like, "Oh my god, it's a breath of fresh air." Now and 3 touchdowns. I know that Jalen Ramsey didn't play, but Diggs cooks Jalen Ramsey every time they play each other anyways, so I don't really think that would have made a difference. Holy 48-20, it wasn't close. They weren't built for that moment. And they beat the 5 to cool for them, but I don't think that really will matter in the end. So I like their team, I guess. Really like their defense. But their offense is definitely fun to watch, but I just think that the better team won on Sunday. That's all.
Yeah, I think so too. I love what Mike McDaniel does. I love the talent on the offense. I love the talent on the defense. But I think this Vic Fangio, quarters heavy, too high, gap and a half up front just doesn't work when you don't have Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey to be the cruxes of that defense. You need insane talent to be able to get away with that cute stuff up front. And it was Swiss cheese on Sunday. And to your point too, it's like, okay, but don't you guys have that firepower too? Shouldn't this still be close even if your defense is Swiss cheese? Like it's just I don't know. I think you're right. I think they were exposed a little bit. Could be one of those things where they just have to get smacked in the mouth once to kind of come off that high horse and get things back on track. I could see them bouncing back in a big way in week 5, but we'll get to week 5 here pretty shortly. This is in your division here, Keeb, so I'll start with you. Washington and Philly came down to the wire. Sam Howell might be legit. That game tying drive was nuts. Ron did not board the riverboat for this game. Didn't go for 2 at the end when I think he kind of should have, and just snatched that momentum and capitalized on how hot Sam Howell was and that receiving core was. When they kind of had Philly on their heels a little bit, sputtered in OT, and ultimately I think the more talented team came out on top. But through 4 games now, has your opinion on Washington changed at all? Do you feel like they're a more legitimate team than maybe the zeitgeist would have dictated preseason?
I think right now Sam Howell's looking like the second best quarterback in that division, or in our division. I think, I mean, I know I'm heavily involved in the card community. They've been riding the hype of Sam Howell to try to get his value up all offseason. But he's showing why he's a viable quarterback. He's able to run. He was running out of the pocket. He got 40 rushing yards, which is pretty solid for a QB not really known for rushing. 290 passing yards, which isn't bad.
Zach, you see that, Zach? You see that, Zach? You see that?
I gave you now.
Nuts. What is it?
Sam Howell card. You know what I should have asked is with how well Sam played, how do you feel about Washington?
But yeah, no, I'm really liking what I'm seeing from their defense. I mean, they just let up 34, but the Eagles' offense is a very talented offense. So
yes,
aside from them letting up 34 in a divisional matchup, whatever, I'm really liking what I'm seeing from their defense. Obviously, Terry McLaurin is still Terry McLaurin, being able to put up production. Being able to have Curtis Samuel in that offense takes some of that off of his shoulders too. Jahan Dotson hasn't looked too bad. I know he had 4 receptions on like 9 targets, but not entirely his fault. Got a signed Musgrove card and signed Benito Santiago as well. You interested, Keeb? Maybe. I'll take a look at it. But I'm really liking what I'm seeing from Sam Howell. I think that this year he's looked better than Dak. I think he's definitely looked better than Daniel Jones. That's really all I got to say about that. I'm also liking what I'm seeing from their run game too with B-Rob.
It's ferocious.
He's been good. And then, yeah, that's basically all I got on that end.
This one will go. Oh, go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, the Sam Howell thing that he just brought up is Sam did turn the ball over 5 times in week 3, that's on that. I mean, like Dak, they haven't asked Dak to do anything. Like I think that he's going to be really tested this week against San Francisco, which is a game everybody's going to win. And it's an instant classic brewing. It's the whole thing about Dak is that he can do all the like little stuff in the regular season. They're going to go to 12 wins because the defense is going to win their games. So all he has to do is throw for like 230 and like they win by a lot. Cool. Dak's cool. Yeah. And then at the end of the year in the playoffs, it's like, hey man, you kind of need to put together here. Are you? And then it's like, no, I'm not going to do it. And then Stephen A roasts you. So is like, are we going to see that on is dominate defensively? I really don't think so. San Francisco probably is going to dominate defensively. So I'm really excited for that game because that's going to, Jerry just said, it's a measuring stick. It's a measuring stick for the team. Like, where are we? We don't really know. We lost to the Cardinals, but we've dominated everybody else. Kind of like the Blues and the Jets dominate everybody else. Play the Chiefs, play San Francisco. Where are we? Like right now, can put together a win there and on him if he wins the game, not the defense. I don't think you can say Sam Howell's better at all. But right now, it's probably season just because he's probably doing more with less.
Yeah, and I think there were probably a lot of people tuning into that game that were like, "Oh, Sam Howell has a little bit of juice."
Yeah.
So I think too, you'll see, like, I was trying to think of who he reminds me of.
I don't know.
And I couldn't really think of a great example. Like there were some plays on which he reminded me of like Jeff Garcia from back in the day, just that similar frame, that gunslinger mentality. But I've been kicking the tires on a good comp for Sam Howell. Maybe I'll come with one next week.
Fair to say Carson Wentz at all?
Maybe he's not quite as like physically gifted, doesn't have the size necessarily, but play style wise, kind of. Like it's just that like he's got this kind of unwavering confidence about him that almost seems unwarranted because it's like, okay, but you know what have you done? Like let's maybe dial it in a little bit and try to just get out of here with a win. But I don't know. I like the mentality. I like the way he plays. I think we could see some growth from him coming up here. Not particularly dissimilar from like what Taylor Heineke did for this team, to be frank. But you know, I am a little bit encouraged from what I saw there. You might finally see a season where that Washington defense kind of figures it out with that crazy defensive front they've got, and find a little bit more balance to where they're actually, you know, not a contender, but in the mix at the end of the season, which would be entertaining to say the least with the top end talent you have in that division. Really quickly, my preseason AFC North champs, the Pittsburgh Steelers, are in shambles. Fire Matt Canada into the sun. That might be the worst professional at anything. Like there is probably not a worse, you know, welder at his job than Matt Canada is at his job. So there's probably not a cashier that is as underwhelming at his job as Matt Canada is.
Even if your register comes up about $57 short, you're still doing a better job than Matt Canada.
Yeah, if you're miscounting cigarettes, you're probably doing better than Matt Canada as far as keeping your job long term. I am livid with him. I obviously have an affinity for George Pickens. I liked some of the pieces they brought in with that offensive line. I think Najee Harris is an overrated, really just overutilized, frankly, running back at times.
Sorry to cut you off. There was one meme I saw where it's like, Najee Harris is an absolute animal. He's 6'1", 240. The only problem is he sucks at football.
Yeah. This guy would be just like Derrick Henry if he was good. But you know, it's one of those things. This is another game in which they did not accrue 400 yards or more of total offense. And this is a team again. This was supposed to be a get right game, and it wasn't even close. They honored J.J. Watt at the beginning of this game, and his brother didn't do anything about it. I don't know. I don't have much else to say about it. Pittsburgh got gobsmacked. C.J. Stroud is the real deal. D'Amico Ryans is the real deal. He's got those guys fired up. And I love what I saw from Houston. I'm lost for words for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'll have to talk some shit to my father-in-law next chance I get.
Really?
But I don't know, man. It looks rough. Yeah, Josh is with us. Loves CJ Stroud. If you haven't seen it, Brett Coleman has an excellent video out on CJ Stroud and kind of just highlighting some of the things he's doing well. Sorry, I'm trying to track this cord down.
He's such a
yeah, man, and he always seemed the most NFL ready, but you know maybe the ceiling wasn't as high. That was kind of the draft consensus, but he has come out really, really hot, and that has been awesome. We're going to close out the show. Each of us has landed on a game that we think you should be tuned into in week 5. And we're going to tell you exactly why. Have you guys conversed at all? Do we know we have separate games between you guys? I'm pretty sure neither of you have the game I have.
I have 2 games, so whatever you don't say, good. I have one ready.
Perfect. Nick, I'll start with you then.
Cool. So there's a couple games that kind of pop this week, but obviously Bills in London. I'm not going to say because I'm a Bills fan. I'm not going to say like my game. That's whatever. I'm not going to say Vikes. That's also a cool game, but another one where I just feel like I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it, but I'm not going to go with that one. And then obviously Cowboys 40. Not going to go with that either. I am, however, going to go with Ravens Steelers. We just finished talking about Pittsburgh. Ravens favored by like 2 in Pittsburgh. We don't know if it's going to be Pickett. We don't know if it's going to be Mitch Trubisky. We don't know if it's going to be the Lamar Jackson that showed up last year. It was incredible. We don't know what's going to happen. You know, like the Ravens Steelers. Let's fucking go, man! Like every time.
That's the best rivalry in football, I think. It has been for like 20 years, yeah.
Remember 20, the COVID year, there was a game that was of the Ravens Steelers, and it was pushed back like times. It was finally like Sunday Night Football, NBC, but it was like during the day. And I was like, this is the dumbest shit ever. And I still watched it, and it was still the Ravens, and they hate each other. Just still watch, no matter who's playing. It was backup quarterback versus backup quarterback. I don't know what was going on, but they still each other because they're not friends. And it's going to be a good game no matter what.
Yeah.
It is for first place. So, hey, listen, it's going to be fun. Definitely tune into Ravens Steelers every single play because it's just a great rivalry.
Yeah, if the Ravens come out on top, then they are 3-0 in the division, and they've beaten every division team on the road.
Yeah. So that kind of guarantees, it guarantees you something.
It's tough to overcome. Yeah, these teams will beat the shit out of each other, if nothing else. Keeb, what game do you have here for Week 5 that the good people at home should be tuned into?
So I'll tell you what game to avoid, and then what game to definitely tune into.
I like it.
The game to avoid is a 1 o'clock game in Miami between the Giants and the Dolphins. Make sure not to watch that one. I will be, and I will suffer for everyone equally. But the game that you should definitely tune into, I'm looking at this from like a betting standpoint because if anyone on here doesn't know, I do Sportsbook Junkies podcast here on the Bite Size Sports Network Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern time. That was yesterday. If you want to go check it out, one game I'm looking at, which is really interesting, is Texans Falcons. I don't know if that was your game or not. So if it was, I'm sorry about that. The Texans are +2 against a Falcons team that just straight up hasn't looked good, in my opinion. Whether it's the Texans overperforming, their defenses look great. CJ Stroud has looked phenomenal. The Texans are the underdogs, and I get that the Falcons are at home. You know, they still have Kyle Pitts, who I still believe can be a generational tight end in the right system. Not in the Falcon system, unfortunately.
Burn Arthur Smith at the stake for underutilizing Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
And
quarter him in the town square.
I think with a better quarterback than Desmond Ridder, you could be looking at a solid tight end. I also love Drake personally. But that being said, I'm going to advise you guys to gamble responsibly, but make sure to watch this game. And I'm taking the Texans money line, as crazy as that sounds.
Doesn't sound crazy.
Against the Falcons in Atlanta. I think it'll be definitely a good game. The Falcons need to have a good showing. The Texans need to ride the hot hand that they've been on. And that's all I got for that. John, what's your game, man?
So we've gone this long without talking about them. I'm going to say watch the Vikings this week against KC at home at the bank. I think it's going to be a really good game, honestly. It's one of those. It is a 3 p.m. game. Are you Coastal Elites? It'll be a 4 p.m. game. But it's game of the week for a lot of regions. So a lot of eyeballs will be on this game already. When for some reasons that shouldn't be, but when I go into the ESPN app and I pull up the game preview for this, and because sometimes I like to look at like the matchup predictor, it'll give you like a percentage probability of each team winning, right?
Sure.
The one video that's attached to this game, and it's what you see with most of the screen when you pull this up, is it looks to be a clip from the Pat McAfee show, and it's titled "How Taylor Swift Can Help Patrick Mahomes Win MVP." And that makes me want to gouge my eyes out with a tablespoon. But
I'm right there with you on that one.
But is she making the flight? Is she coming to Minnesota, dude? Hopefully not.
I mean, she went to what? She went to New York, and then what was the first one she was at?
First game, she went to the city in Chicago. She went to KC, and then she went to MetLife.
She was in KC, and then she has a house in New York, apparently. They wouldn't shut up about that on the broadcast, so that's why she was there. I'm hoping she doesn't make the flight. If she doesn't, they'll probably still get her on the broadcast on Zoom or something. The cameraman literally, like, there was a big play going on, and the cameraman switched over to the Taylor Swift cam and was like, oh, and it was like, oh shit, and had to switch back. It'll
be like this, ready? It'll be like touchdown, and it'll be Taylor. Yeah, woo!
Yep. Taylor and Brittany back there going nuts. But when it comes to the football, which is what we're talking about, I just hope she's not there so we don't get so much of her on screen. Just knock something over. Because I don't want that to be as big of a distraction. But I think that'll bring some
around.
She's coming to Minnesota to get some lutefisk, according to our good buddy Nate. Hot dishes of all varieties, I'm sure. But it'll be a good football, right? It'll be a good game. Reason being, the Chiefs pulled out that Jets win, so we're not going to get angry Patty coming to town. He's riding high. We're not going to get that crazy get back game coming off a loss. You've also seen some extremely promising things from Brian Flores as defensive coordinator of this team. It's one of the most efficient offenses in the NFL, despite the results to this point. So they could go toe to toe with KC. You've seen Brian Flores send a ridiculous amount of pressure. The most pass rush reps by safeties in the NFL. Number 1 is Harrison Smith, and number 2 is Josh Metellus, both Vikings, by a large margin. The linebackers with the most pass rush reps. Number 1 is Jordan Hicks, and number 2 is Ivan Pace Jr., both Vikings, by a wide margin, by about 15 pass rush reps, comfortable. So he's bringing heat. And, with like 3-4 on the roof, I'm not worried about these KC pass catchers. I'm really not.
I don't blame you.
So I think, and you know what? Regardless of the quality of opponent, watch a Vikings game because they will play up or down to whoever's on the other side. So I think it's going to be a close game, and I think it could be a game where the Vikes actually get one over on them. But one way or the other, you kind of know it's coming.
That would be great. That would be so great.
That would be great for Nick. Everybody involved. It would be great for our boy Justin Herbert. Would probably like that action.
I like praying on the Chiefs' downfall, so if the Vikings sneak one out, it's good for me too.
There we go.
Yep, it's all good. It'll all be good.
Even though I love Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs have just been too good for too long, and it's time for them to just take a breather.
Not a 1:00 game, so Cousins will suck. Well, if you recall, Nate, it was a 3:00 game when Kirk Cousins absolutely daggered Bill Belichick and the big bad Patriots last year. It was also a Thursday night game last year when he snatched the souls of, or no, wait, it was actually Pats on Thursday night on a short week coming off the Dallas loss.
Yeah.
But listen, you know what, Nate? Don't hit me with those national media narratives, dude. Don't hit me with those national media narratives. Go tell Colin Cowherd about it. But that's all I got on that one. It should be a fun game to watch. It'll be entertaining. You'll probably see the Vikings lose in hilarious fashion. But I think they could pull it out, which would be fun for all of us. But
and
yeah,
also
go ahead.
that's just watch that one too.
Yeah, yeah. Watch the Bills.
Watch that one.
Bills are good.
Also, speaking of the
Bills
Thursday
just-
night, also speaking of
That's talking about them, but
football, make sure to take the Commanders -5.5. Gamble responsibly.
Commanders -5.5. I like it. Speaking of Keebs, you can find him Monday nights here on the Bite Size Sports Network at 7 Eastern, 6 Central, as well as the Bounce on most Thursdays, 9 Eastern, 8 Central.
Every Thursday now. Fun fact.
Is it every Thursday now? Work
Every
schedule's figured out? Every Thursday, you can see the man below Nick and I on the Bounce right here on the Bite Size Sports Network. Nick, you can follow him on Instagram, the Buffalo Times.
fuck yeah, man! Like the season, we have gained over like 200 followers. That's like two. Everybody excited. Bills Mafia's coming together. If you just want to follow for NFL, that's we do that too. So yeah, it's really hot right now. It always seems early in the year. Yeah, it's a fun follow.
Yep, for sure. You can also check out on this channel as well. Josh and I are actually recording right after this. Bite Size Vikes is one of many team-specific podcasts we have now on the network. So you can check those out on the YouTube feed as well as on Spotify. Bite Size NFL is the channel to which you should subscribe on Spotify. Leave us a review. Leave a like on this video if you haven't already. Hit the bell so you never miss when we go live or drop a new video. We've got all kinds of coverage here on Bite Size Sports. You can also catch me if you're into Vikings mania at all, or just like a romping good time talking about football. You can catch me on Minnesota Sports Talk on most Thursdays as well. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Again, hit the like if you haven't already. Leave a comment once the video's done going live. That'll help us generate some more viewership, help us combat that unforgiving YouTube algorithm, and check us out next week. Same time, Tuesday night for Necessary Roughness. We'll be recapping Week 5. We'll see if any of these games we told you to watch were worth it, and we will apologize in advance. But we'll see you next week. Thanks again, guys.
Peace, y'all.